In case you missed day one of the DNC, this video now going viral of the DNC completely butchering the national anthem pretty much sums it up. Now, this is realistically one of the worst renditions of the national anthem I've ever heard, if not the worst. You can see them laughing and smiling at the podium. Quite frankly, I think it was really disrespectful, and I think it's really disheartening that this sort of behavior, this sort of display, is coming from one of the two major political parties in our country. Now, before I show you that video with the full audio, it's important to go through the events that led us to that moment, because the entire first day of the DNC was a disaster. It was a train wreck. And quite frankly, it was a preview of what a Harris-Walz administration would look like. It would be completely dysfunctional. Because if they can't even run their own convention, then how can we trust them with taking charge of the federal government? The clearest example is how the convention began. The convention began pretty much completely empty. Here's what it looked like. Now, people were sharing clips on social media of the stadium empty. You can see most of the upper rings have absolutely no one in them. Democrats on social media were claiming that the pictures were taken before the convention actually started. But as you can see here, that's completely false. The speakers were already on stage speaking, and hardly anyone was in the convention. The reason for this was because people were trapped outside waiting in line for hours. The media line for the press to get in was reportedly about 45 minutes long. Part of the reason it took so long was because everyone entering, the press, the media, the delegates, they all had to provide IDs that matched their badges, which of course is ironic because the Democrat Party doesn't want IDs to vote. They claim that IDs are racist. They claim that IDs are classist. They don't want IDs, yet you need an ID to get into their own convention. How hypocritical. It also showcases that perhaps they don't believe what they say. It's rules for thee, but not for me. The line to get in for the delegates was just as bad. You can see here, it's multiple people strong. There's the security checkpoint for people to get in. And once they got past the security checkpoint, there was a second checkpoint before they even got into the convention center. Now, part of the reason security was so high is because, of course, there were so many protests in Chicago protesting the DNC. Now, yesterday I made a video about the protests. After I made that video, the protesters actually began tearing down the gates. They were storming the barricades. They had, from my understanding, there are actually two separate gates that established the perimeter around the DNC, and they had breached the first gate. And this was actually featured on local news. Where is the mainstream media on this? If these were Trump supporters, we all know that the media would be screaming insurrection.
This afternoon, you can see it right now. Demonstrators are now tearing fencing down. This is the first that we're seeing. You see it right here live on air. These demonstrators have torn the fencing down. They're now trying to hop over the fence. But on the other side of the fence right now, you do see security that have lined this perimeter. We see a number of Chicago police. We see Secret Service agents. We also see what we believe are out-of-state police. Again, this is the secure perimeter that is right outside of the United Center. The group landed here within the last 20 minutes or so. There are thousands that are part of this demonstration that's taking place today. And everything, for the most part, has remained peaceful.
Now, it wasn't just there. The perimeter was breached in multiple areas, which, of course, is not surprising because, as I showed yesterday in my video, the perimeter fencing went several blocks around the United Center. So the fencing is several miles long. So, and you can even see there, the fencing is very different than what was around the Capitol on January 6th. A lot of people like to call January 6th an insurrection, but my personal view is that it was a mob that just turned into a riot. January 6th would not have happened if it weren't for the security failures, if it weren't for Nancy Pelosi and DC Mayor Bowser refusing to bring in the National Guard, refusing to bring in more security measures, and that's why January 6th happened. Here, you can see they have real fences actually pulled up. Also, how ironic. The Democrat Party says they don't like walls. They say walls are racist. They say walls are xenophobic. Yet, the Democrats have no problem putting walls up around their own convention. Again, here you can see this is a different type of fencing, a different area of the perimeter, and there are police right on the other side. If this was like January 6th, there would have been no police. There would have been lighter fencing. So again, you can see that Democrats have no problem pouring resources, pouring money behind law enforcement to protect themselves, which again is so much irony, so much hypocrisy here, because the Democrats for years, especially during 2020, claimed defund the police, defund the police. Kamala Harris herself actually bailed out rioters. So to see this sort of security at the DNC, for anyone paying attention, I hope it highlights the irony and highlights the hypocrisy of the DNC. Now, there was another major breach, I believe, on the north side of the United Center, and this is what it looked like. You can see the second line of fencing here in the background with the police. So that's part of the reason why it took so long for people to get inside the United Center, because security was tight and they were double checking IDs to make sure no one could get inside. And there were actually several disruptors that got inside the hall. I didn't see them covered in the mainstream media at all. I'll show them to you in a bit. Now, inside, AOC gave one of the opening speeches, and she completely self-owned herself, and I don't think she meant to.
Republicans have attacked me by saying that I should go back to bartending. But let me tell you, I'm happy to any day of the week, because there is nothing wrong with working for a living.
AOC, I don't think that was the mic drop you thought it was. You completely admitted that you don't currently work. I mean, she said she wouldn't mind returning to bartending because there's nothing wrong working for a living. So are you not implying that you're not working for a living right now? I mean, hello, 2 + 2 = 5, apparently. Just complete idiocy. I don't know what that is. And the crowd just eating it up and roaring. That's what I don't get. And I think that right there sums up what the Democrat Party is. Because if you actually listen to what they say, if you actually listen to her words, if she actually thought about what she said before she said it, you would see it makes no sense. Yet the audience and the entire arena exploded in applause, exploded in cheers. And that is what the Democrat Party is about in 2024. They're all about vibes. They're all about emotional feelings. And if you say something with conviction, and if you say something with emotion, then the people all eat it up. But my challenge to any independents, my challenge to any disaffected Democrats out there who are watching this video, is actually listen to what these people are saying on stage. Don't just listen to them, but then also compare it to what you see with your own eyes and ears. The Democrats like to say that the economy is great. Well, do you feel like the economy is great? Do you feel like you're able to put food on the table? Do you feel like your paycheck is going as far as it did 4 years ago? Because that's what the Democrats are doing. They're not just lying, they are gaslighting, which is a form of abuse, and they are telling you not to believe your lived experiences because of the good vibes and the hope and the joy that they're putting out there. The Democrats are saying that this is about joy and families, yet Andy Beshear, governor of Kentucky, went on MSNBC immediately after the DNC and essentially advocated for someone in JD Vance's family, if not JD Vance himself, to be raped, sexually assaulted. Take a look at this.
I mean, think about what some people have had to go through because of these laws. I mean, JD Vance calls pregnancy resulting from rape inconvenient. Like, inconvenience is traffic. I mean, make him go through this.
Make him go through this? Beshear, please clarify your statements. Are you saying that someone needs to assault someone in JD Vance's family or JD Vance himself? Kamala Harris, you should denounce Beshear right now. Here's the thing. First of all, abortion is wrong. It is killing an innocent life. It is killing a baby before it even has a chance to be born. It's not about women's rights. It's not about controlling women's bodies. It's the fact that there is now a completely separate entity, an actual human being in an early life stage. And we need to protect the most vulnerable among us. If we can't protect the innocent, How can you protect the rest of the populace? How can we trust that you're going to take care of the seniors? And that right there is just shocking cruelty and brashness from one of the most prominent rising stars in the Democrat Party. Of course, we shouldn't be surprised because Hillary Clinton herself took to the stage and claimed that Democrats were the party of children when they have a literal van outside providing free abortions and vasectomies.
Kamala cares about kids and families, cares about America.
Does anyone really believe that? I mean, Kamala Harris, as the borders are, we now know that there are 89,000 children who have crossed the border who are now unaccounted for. That is the government's own numbers. In other words, they have no idea where these children are. They were separated from their parents, not because of the government, but because they were brought in by traffickers. Are they victims of sex trafficking? Are they victims of labor trafficking? Or what is going on here? Where are these children? Why isn't Kamala Harris being held to account? And again, the DNC invited Planned Parenthood to come with their RV to provide abortions and vasectomies. I don't see how anyone thinks that that's pro-children and pro-family. Now, this leads us to the national anthem. Now, to be very clear, the national anthem did not happen on the main stage at the DNC. It happened during one of the breakout panels throughout the day, and here's how it went.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad strides
As you can see there, a complete train wreck. Now, this happened during one of the breakout panels. They had panels and breakout rooms based on race. They had one for the Black Caucus. They had one for the Hispanic, AAPI, Native American, Ethnic Council. Now, if the Republican Party had done one breakouts like this and had a room for white people, of course, that would have been a disaster. The media would have claimed racist. Yet the Democrats can do this for race, and it's completely fine. First of all, this is a reinforcement of division. By organizing events based on race, the party is reinforcing these racial divisions. They are saying that there are such things as black issues, Asian issues, Hispanic issues, and the Democrat Party has said, Barack Obama said, there's not a blue America, not a white America, not a red America. There is just one America, that we all bleed red on the inside. But that is clearly not true, according to the Democrats. They are look, here's the thing. If you claim that there is equality, then you should not be having these breakout sessions, because what does this remind you of? This reminds you of segregation, and I thought that that's what the Democrat Party is about. I thought we were over the chapter of segregation. I thought that that was a chapter in the past that we had moved well past, but apparently the Democrats want to bring it back. When you look at Kamala Harris's rallies, they start chanting, "We're not going back, we're not going back." Well, apparently they want to bring us back to the days of segregation, because that's what the Democrat Party is doing right now. They're doing that at their actual convention. That's not equality. That is division, and that is segregation. And they actually brought in a union worker who had this to say.
I am a fruit and I am the president of SEIU, representing 2 million service and care workers.
That voice, right?
We're going to be together, that we write new rules to make it easier for all workers to join a union. And we are going to build a younger, darker, hipper, fresher, sneaker-wearing labor movement.
A darker labor movement. Here's the rule on whether rhetoric is acceptable or not. Just do the opposite. And if the opposite is not acceptable, then what you're saying is not acceptable. So the opposite of that is, let's build a lighter labor union. Let's build a wider labor union. Would that be acceptable? Would the Democrats like that? Would Hollywood, the media, corporations, would they like that? Would they say that? Because if you can't say the opposite, then what you're saying is probably not acceptable when it comes to race. So there you have it. They had celebrating that, cheering for that at their national convention on a national platform, on a national stage in front of millions of people. One of the ironies here is that they have no idea what they're saying. Not just that, but they obviously talked about Donald Trump a lot instead of actually talking about policies. And here is what one of the speakers had to say.
Donald Trump would be able to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political opponents. He could even turn the FBI into his own personal police force. That is not how it works in America. That's how it works in dictatorships.
Does anyone want to tell her about the lawfare against Donald Trump and how Biden's DOJ has been essentially politically prosecuting and persecuting President Trump? Isn't it funny that none of these indictments ever came against Donald Trump until he announced his run for president for a third time? They never came against him. Some of these issues are issues that were long resolved, long over. In fact, in New York, they actually rewrote some of the statutes because of the statutes of limitations had already expired against Trump. I believe it was the E.G. and Carroll case where that happened. She is essential. This is what Democrats do best. They always project. Whatever they accuse Donald Trump and the Republicans of doing, that's essentially what Democrats have done. Also, every time I see that clip, I get really distracted. I usually don't make fun of people's physical features, but her tongue was just really long. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, is she gonna like lick a fly off of her nose? Speaking of weird, that was quite the segue. I'm serious, I ad-lib all of these. But speaking of weird, one of the best parts is they actually ripped off the Hulk Hogan moment at the RNC, which is really funny because the media and the Democrats and their Hollywood allies were all saying that the moment with Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt at the RNC, they all said it was weird, they all said it was cheesy, yet the DNC ripped it off, and the rip-off, as usual, was worse than the real thing. America, choose your fighter. And choose carefully. This is how that moment looked.
Great American poet, Nellie. It's getting hot in here.
Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to choose Hulk Hogan. Went a lot better than the rip-off version. Now, like I alluded to earlier, protesters did make it inside the DNC arena within the United Center itself, and they had pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas flags while Joe Biden was speaking, and there was some violence against them from other delegates. Here's how that transpired.
In August of 2017, extremists coming out of the woods.
So much for love, so much for peace, so much for diversity, so much for inclusion. Also, some people tracked the mentions at the DNC. Trump was mentioned 147 times. They only mentioned the economy 27 times, the border 8 times, crime 6 times, high prices 5 times, inflation 3 times. So in other words, the Democrats' entire platform appears to be anything and anyone but Trump, and they're not really talking about the issues that matter to Americans. If the media actually did their job, they would be talking about the complete lack of messaging from the Democrat Party, but instead the media is focusing on how Trump can't stick to the issues. Well, I don't know about you, but every time I've seen Trump speak, he's been talking about inflation, he's been talking about high prices, he's been talking about the economy, he's been talking about the border, he's been talking about crime. Yet every time you turn on the DNC, every time you watch them speak, they've just been talking about Trump. They've been talking about Orange Man bad. They're not giving their actual policies, and whenever they do, it's crazy stuff, like the price gauging idea that Kamala Harris talked about the other day. And I know it's price gouging for those of you who didn't watch the previous video, but it's just making fun of how Kamala Harris said it. Now, of course, all of this is just my analysis, just my opinion, and I would love to know yours in the comments below. From a scale of 0 to Jeb Bush, how do you think day one of the DNC went? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers in the algorithm like you. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.